Imagine a seemingly harmless dinner conversation spiraling into a marital minefield. Mark Butler, a 38-year-old financial advisor, thought he knew the rules of love and loyalty until one barbecue changed everything. Trust, temptation, and secrets collide as one couple's playful hall pass agreement tests the boundaries of their marriage. Mark Butler couldn't help but feel a twinge of pride as he glanced at the family photo on his desk. 10 years of marriage to Amy, a spirited and kind-hearted yoga instructor, had given him a life that most people would envy. At 38, Mark was a successful financial advisor who thrived on logic and structure, qualities that made him great at his job and sometimes a bit predictable at home. Amy, 36, brought a balance to their lives with her zest for adventure and a serenity that seemed to defy the chaos of daily life. Together, they were the couple everyone admired, often held up as the gold standard of a modern, happy marriage. But as Mark would soon learn, even the most idyllic relationships have their blind spots. Beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect union lay unspoken insecurities and moments of doubt they rarely acknowledged, let alone confronted. Mark had always trusted Amy implicitly, but he also knew their relationship wasn't immune to challenges. Little did he know, a casual barbecue invitation from their friends Tom and Katie would soon challenge everything he thought he understood about trust, boundaries, and the delicate balance that holds a marriage together. The day had started out like any other social gathering. A sunny Saturday afternoon with the aroma of grilled food wafting through Tom and Katie's spacious backyard. Mark and Amy were relaxed, chatting with friends and enjoying a rare break from their usual routines. The beer was cold, the laughter genuine, and for a while it felt like nothing could disrupt the easy camaraderie of the group. Then Tom decided to stir the pot. "All right, here's a fun question," he announced, holding up his beer for emphasis. "If you had a celebrity hall pass, who would it be?" Mark chuckled, assuming it was just another of Tom's ridiculous conversation starters. The group erupted into laughter as everyone tossed out names. Amy even joked about hers being Ryan Gosling. But before long, the light-hearted chatter took a serious turn. "You know," Tom added, grinning mischievously, "Katie and I actually have an agreement like that. It's not just celebrities, though. If we want to use our hall pass, we can." The table went quiet for a moment as everyone processed his words. "Wait, seriously?" Amy asked, her brows raised in surprise. Katie nodded, unfazed. "Yeah, it's worked for us so far. No strings, no drama, just trust." Mark tried to laugh along, but something about the conversation felt heavier than it should have. The idea of a hall pass, once a playful joke, now loomed over the barbecue as a strange and uncomfortable reality. It wasn't long before Mark found himself questioning not just Tom and Katie's arrangement, but the very foundation of his own marriage. Could an idea like this really work? And if so, at what cost? As the barbecue continued, Mark couldn't shake the odd weight of Tom's words. The easy camaraderie of earlier now felt charged, like an invisible line had been crossed. While the other guests laughed off the hall pass idea, Tom and Katie seemed uncomfortably genuine. Later in the evening, as the crowd thinned out, Mark found himself alone with Tom near the grill. Unable to resist, he brought it up. "So you weren't joking earlier about the hall pass thing?" Tom smirked, taking a swig of his beer. "Not at all. Katie and I have been doing it for years. It's not just about celebrities either. We've got a real deal. If either of us feels the need to explore, we can, as long as we're honest about it." Mark blinked, caught off guard by Tom's casual tone. "And you're saying it hasn't caused problems?" Tom shrugged, his grin fading. "Not for us, but it's not for everyone. You need trust, and you need rules. Most couples can't handle it." Across the yard, Katie had started talking with Amy. Mark strained to hear their conversation, catching bits and pieces. "I used mine once," Katie admitted with a small laugh. "It wasn't a big deal, but it made me appreciate Tom even more." Amy seemed intrigued, her expression thoughtful. Mark felt his stomach tighten. Was she just humoring Katie, or was she actually considering the idea? The thought unsettled him. What started as a quirky topic for laughs was suddenly morphing into something uncomfortably real. On the drive home, the atmosphere in the car felt heavier than it should have. The laughter and camaraderie of the barbecue were long gone, replaced by an uneasy silence. Mark kept his eyes on the road, his mind racing with the implications of what they'd heard. Amy broke the silence first. "You have to admit, it's an interesting idea," she said, her tone casual, almost teasing. Mark glanced at her, unsure how to respond. "What, the hall pass thing? I thought it was just a joke." "Was it, though?" Amy pressed, her voice light but probing. "Katie seemed pretty honest about it, and it's not like they're falling apart. If anything, they seemed fine." Mark tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Fine? Amy, we're married. We don't need a hall pass to be fine." Amy laughed softly, brushing his defensiveness aside. "Relax, Mark. I'm not saying we should do it. I just think it's interesting to hear how other couples make their own rules. Don't you?" Mark didn't respond. His mind was still stuck on Katie's confession and the unsettling ease with which she spoke about it. For the first time in their marriage, he found himself wondering, was Amy truly satisfied, or was there a part of her that longed for the same kind of freedom Katie had described? The conversation ended there, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that their seemingly perfect relationship might not be as solid as he'd believed. A week passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm, or so Mark thought. The barbecue had faded into the background, though the hall pass conversation occasionally resurfaced in his thoughts. He convinced himself it was just a fleeting curiosity for Amy, something they'd laugh about in the future. Then, one Friday night, as Mark settled into the couch with a glass of scotch and a movie, his phone buzzed. It was Amy. Her voice was loud, almost drowned out by the music and chatter in the background. "Hey, babe!" she yelled, excitement bubbling in her tone. "Guess where I am?" Mark furrowed his brow. I don't know. You said you were meeting Claire for drinks, right?" "Well," Amy said with a mischievous laugh, "we ended up at this club downtown. And you won't believe this. I ran into my hall pass." Mark's blood ran cold. He didn't even know who her supposed hall pass was. "What do you mean, Amy? What are you talking about?" "It's Ryan," she exclaimed, laughing again. "Ryan Gosling." "Well, okay. Not really. But this guy looks exactly like him. He even has the same smile." Mark felt a knot forming in his stomach. "Amy, come home," he said firmly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Oh, don't be so serious," she replied, brushing him off. "We're just talking. Anyway, I might use my hall pass tonight. You said it was just a joke, right?" Before Mark could respond, the line went dead. He stared at his phone, his pulse pounding in his ears. Was she serious? Was this a test? Panic began to set in as he realized he had no idea what Amy might actually do. Mark couldn't sit still. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios as he called Amy back, but each attempt went straight to voicemail. Anxiety gripped him like a vice. He had always trusted Amy, but this wasn't something he could dismiss as harmless fun. He paced the living room, running through his options. Calling Claire seemed logical, but he wasn't sure if she was still with Amy or even aware of what was happening. Finally, he decided to reach out to Jack, his closest friend, and someone who had always been level-headed in moments of crisis. "Jack, it's Mark," he said quickly when his friend picked up. "I need your help." Jack, clearly confused, asked what was going on. Mark explained everything, from the barbecue to Amy's bizarre phone call. Jack listened silently before finally speaking. "Okay, first of all, calm down. She's probably just messing with you. But if you're really worried, let's figure out where she is." Together, they pieced together what little information Mark had. Jack suggested they try the club district downtown, where Amy had said she was. Mark hesitated but agreed. It was better than sitting at home feeling helpless. As they drove toward the area, Mark's thoughts spiraled. Was this just a drunken joke gone too far? Or had Amy truly crossed a line? Every scenario played out in his head, each one worse than the last. By the time they arrived, Mark wasn't sure whether he was more afraid of finding Amy or not finding her at all. Mark's heart pounded as he and Jack pulled up near the row of crowded clubs. The street buzzed with life, laughter, music, and the occasional shout from a tipsy reveler. It felt surreal to think that somewhere in this chaos, Amy might be making a choice that could shatter their marriage. "Stay calm," Jack said, placing a hand on Mark's shoulder. "You're here to get answers, not to cause a scene." Mark nodded, though his anxiety had morphed into a simmering mix of anger and fear. They began their search, weaving through packed sidewalks and scanning the faces of people spilling out of the clubs. Mark felt a twinge of desperation every time he didn't see Amy's familiar smile. Finally, they spotted her. Amy was leaning against the bar in one of the trendiest clubs on the Strip, chatting animatedly with a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to Ryan Gosling. She looked radiant, her laughter filling the air as she lightly touched the man's arm. Mark froze. For a moment, he just stared, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Should he storm in and demand an explanation? Or should he wait and observe, hoping she would prove his fears wrong? Jack nudged him forward. "You need to talk to her. Now." Summoning his courage, Mark approached. Amy noticed him almost immediately, her eyes widening in surprise. "Mark, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he replied, his voice tight. He glanced at the man, who was now awkwardly stepping back. "This your Ryan Gosling?" Amy's playful expression faltered. "Mark, it's not what you think. We were just talking. That's all." "Talking?" Mark said, his voice rising. "You called me saying you were using your hall pass. What was I supposed to think?" The tension between them was palpable. People nearby began to glance their way, sensing the brewing drama. Amy sighed, her confident demeanor fading into something more vulnerable. "Can we talk about this somewhere else?" she asked softly. Back in the car, the silence was deafening. Mark gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white as he stared straight ahead. Amy sat beside him, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. Jack had stayed behind to give them space, but the tension between them made the drive feel unbearable. Finally, Mark broke the silence. "What the hell were you thinking, Amy? Do you have any idea what that call did to me?" Amy sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought it was a joke. Until it wasn't." "Wasn't," Mark repeated, his voice breaking. "What does that even mean? Were you planning to do something, or were you just testing me?" Amy looked away, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't know," she admitted. "I guess I wanted to see how you'd react. Lately, I've felt like we've been stuck in a routine, like we're just going through the motions. When Katie told me about her hall pass, it made me wonder, do we even excite each other anymore?" Her words hit Mark like a punch to the gut. He felt the weight of her honesty, but it didn't lessen the sting. "So your solution was to humiliate me? To make me think you were cheating?" "I wasn't going to do anything, Mark," she said, her voice cracking. I needed to feel something different, something exciting. But seeing you tonight, seeing how much it hurt you, I realized I took it too far." "I'm sorry." Mark didn't reply immediately. He couldn't. The mix of relief and anger churned inside him, leaving him unsure of what to say. As they pulled into their driveway, he finally spoke. "We need to figure this out, Amy. Together. But what you did tonight, it can't happen again." Amy nodded, her tears falling freely now. "It won't. I promise." The house was eerily quiet as they stepped inside. The tension between them hung heavy in the air, But for the first time that night, it felt like an opportunity for clarity rather than conflict. Mark gestured toward the couch and they both sat down, though it felt like a vast chasm separated them. Mark broke the silence. Amy, I need to understand. Why did you feel like you needed whatever this was tonight? Is it me? Is it us? Amy hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Mark, I love you. I never stopped loving you. But lately it feels like we've become more like roommates than partners. We plan everything, bills, schedules, groceries, but there's no spark anymore, no excitement. When Katie talked about her hall pass, I guess it just woke something up in me. I wanted to feel that rush again. Her words stung, but Mark forced himself to listen. And you didn't think you could talk to me about this? Instead, you went to a club and made that call. Do you have any idea how that felt? I know, Amy said, her voice trembling. I wasn't thinking clearly. It was stupid and reckless. And I see now how much it hurt you. But it wasn't about wanting someone else. It was about feeling alive, feeling seen. Mark's anger softened as he saw the genuine regret in her eyes. Amy, I get it. Relationships aren't perfect, and we've definitely let things slide. But we can't fix this by pretending the rules don't apply to us. If we're going to get through this, we need to be honest, with ourselves and each other. Amy nodded, her tears flowing freely now. I want that too, Mark. I want us to be better. I'm so sorry for everything. Mark reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. We'll figure it out, Amy. But it's going to take work. Both of us. In the weeks that followed, Mark and Amy took deliberate steps to repair their relationship. They signed up for couples therapy, a move that felt daunting at first but quickly became a safe space for them to unpack their feelings. They started carving out time for date nights and even reignited their shared hobbies, like hiking and cooking together. The hall pass fiasco became a turning point, not just a mistake but a wake-up call. They learned to communicate more openly, addressing the little resentments and frustrations before they could fester. One evening, as they were watching a movie, Amy turned to Mark with a small smile. You know, I think this is the first time in months I've felt us again. Mark smiled back, pulling her close. Me too. And no more hall passes, agreed? Amy laughed, rolling her eyes playfully. Agreed. What a terrible idea. For Mark, the experience left a lasting impression, not just about the fragility of trust, but also about the importance of keeping the flame alive in a marriage. He realized that relationships require constant effort, and when faced with challenges, it's better to confront them together rather than seek fleeting solutions elsewhere. Thanks for watching, everyone, he says directly to the audience. If you've ever had doubts in your relationship or faced moments where trust felt shaky, just know that you're not alone. The key is to talk, to listen, and to never stop working on what you've built together. With a smile, he adds, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had a hall pass conversation? Let's talk about it in the comments below. See you next time.